Warning: the following audio may contain coarse language and other materials that may not be suitable for a younger audience. The opinions expressed in this audio are solely those of the speakers involved. These conversations may contain spoilers for current media such as games, comics, movies, television shows, and more. Chronic Geeks makes no claim to ownership of the various media discussed, simply the opinions expressed. Listener discretion is advised.
Went right into it. You know what? We still gonna have my intro music because I like my intro music. So we're gonna let that play. Get in the background. Thought that was a good background. Now we'll come in. What's going on, people? Welcome. We are Grown Geeks. This is Weigh In Wednesday. You are awesome for being here. Tonight, we are here to talk about They Cloned Tyrone. New Netflix movie starring John Boyega, Jamie Foxx, Teyonah Parris. Teyonah, you are correct. My apologies, Miss Parris. Teyonah Parris. And many people may remember her from WandaVision. She's had a nice little string of movies. She did one with Anthony Mackie not too long ago. That was pretty good. I'd have to pull up the IMDb to go through all her list of credits. She's a fantastic actress. And I think this was one of those movies that kind of showcased some of that.
Yep, I agree.
My co-host, as always, right here, the man himself, Jeffrey. I want to give a quick shout out to Jeffrey. Everybody, take a look at my exclusive Hobie Brown Spider-Punk. Ha. See, you need to get you one of these, T. This would be perfect for your next t-shirt.
I do. That's a nice one.
And you can actually go to jpnt17.com and get your very own. Order a different one, though. Don't get mine. I
like that one.
I'm going to drop the link in the chat.
Definitely put the link in the chat so people can see that. You, too, can have you a Spider-Punk shirt. This might have just made the list of my new favorite shirt.
I put the Afro Picks on shirts too.
Yes. Got DC Afro Picks, Marvel Afro Picks. It's a nice collection. Check out the website. It's some good stuff on there. I keep forgetting that I got
T-shirt Tuesday right there.
All this glare. So let me click here so I can see what we got happening. Here we go. Okay, check. Everything's good. We're up and running over here and there and there. Man, I'm going to drop if you decide you want to join us and be a part of this conversation, the link will be in the chat as well for you to hop in and be a part. And let's see, that's the YouTube one. I need the Facebook one. It is here. We'll put the link in Facebook as well. Nope. It's making me start. Don't want to start. Want to join it. I get that part figured out in a minute. So what's going on, people? How y'all doing?
Chilling.
Chilling. We have a special guest today, Jeffrey. Do you see this? We have She Geek Teresa. Miss Teresa K joining us. She's blowing up a little bit over there on TikTok. I'm seeing that. Checking out her shopping hauls and T-shirt Tuesdays, and I love the theme. I love the concept and everything. And you are actually on another podcast. What is the name of that show?
I am. I'm actually on a couple of different panels on that podcast. The podcast itself is the Moana Nui podcast.
Okay, Moana Nui.
And Moana Nui, yes. And I actually just posted the event for our monthly spot. I just posted it into Grown Ass Geeks, the group, Grown A, excuse my language.
Where it's 18 plus show.
We do the Marvel versus DC panel. That's really how it started off. But, we talk about all kinds of things now. It doesn't have to be Marvel or DC property. We talk about other movies and other TV shows. We do that about a week or two after something ends. So, if a movie comes out, of course, we have to give it a couple of weeks before we start discussing spoilers. And the same with like the TV shows. The next one of those, I have no idea. Probably after Blue Beetle. But
Okay.
Every first Thursday, my girl Simone and I are the Opinionated Variants 616. So we'll be on tomorrow evening at 8:30. And once again, I did just post that event in the group. And it's the Moana Nui podcast once again. But Simone and I just talk about, She Geek stuff. We talk a little cosplay. She's a very prolific cosplayer. I am trying to break out of my shell so that I can do some cosplaying. I think the TikTok is helping me with that. So we talk a little fashion, a little current events, just whatever comes up.
Excuse me.
Bless
Jeez.
you.
Okay. Well, I think I look forward to checking that out. And the fact that there is a DC versus Marvel panel, I'm got to figure out how to get a guest spot on that.
Absolutely.
Coming in, cause
Same.
some ruckus. Like coming in, cause some ruckus, and
Me and Sam's whole relationship was built off of DC versus Marvel.
Well, I actually, the young lady who invited me to be on the panel, I actually invited her to be in Grown A Geeks, and she did accept, so she could just kind of see what's going on and kind of a little intro to Sam particularly, so that we could get some crossover going.
definitely. And if nothing else, you know what I'm saying, if she's already familiar with podcast format, she's always welcome to be a guest. That is one of the beauties of this live show. It is open to the public. It is Weigh In Wednesday. So we welcome opinions. We want people to join in, talk, discuss with us. And Jeff ain't got no problem talking about what we want to talk about. It's a lot more fun when other people come in and talk with us. So the more you talk, the more we talk, and the more interaction we get going, the better it is.
Oh man,
So-
I meant to get my kufi for this episode. I forgot.
So for everybody who is watching and have questions and want to know what Teresa's talking about, Grown A Geeks is the Facebook group. You can click that QR code right there above her, and that will take you to the link tree that has all the places you can find us on social media. You can find Elder Geek Sam on TikTok. You can find Elder Geek Sam on Twitch, the Grown A Geeks YouTube channel, the Facebook group, the Instagram, etc., etc. So click that QR code. Of course, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh man, so we got comment in here. So yep, it is the first week of school. Everybody going back to school. I had to adjust my schedule a little bit because there are two schools right outside of my neighborhood, an elementary school and a middle school. So morning traffic be cray. Be ridiculous trying to get out of my neighborhood sometimes. So but it is definitely I would say fun movie. Would I describe it as a fun movie? I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it.
I
I
think
think
it was very fun.
I was about to say I think fun is an accurate description of the movie. Um, and let me see.
I
Let me
feel
go.
like I understand the reluctance to not want to call it fun just because of the subject matter.
Yeah.
But I'm just reminded that like black people just have the ability to turn any and everything into a joke. And so
Yeah,
even when something crazy is going on, the jokes don't stop because it's always something
Right.
crazy going on. So if you're gonna wait till it's a okay moment to joke, well, for us it ain't never gonna come. So we got to joke through everything.
this is true. Now, and I will say, um, and I'm gonna get this spoiler warning up here. It's been out a little bit, and I feel like we're good to just put a spoiler warning tag, have it across the bottom. Those are commas, not periods. There we go. Scroll, boom, pop that up. There it is. There's still commas. Um, but we have a spoiler warning, so we'll put that out there because we will discuss everything about this movie. I don't think we can do a proper review on this movie without getting into
Yeah.
the meat of the movie. So anybody who hasn't seen it, this is your moment. Spoilers ahead.
And it was
Um,
funny that I thought it was funny anyway that you texted me and asked me to come on. I just watched it.
I watched it yesterday,
Yeah, well, I think
and
I watched it Sunday. So yeah, it had been out for a minute.
and I knew we were going to do the review on the movie. Jeff mentioned that I think it was like Friday. He might have said something. And I was like, okay, yeah, we'll definitely do
That's
that. I
what
was
I
like,
watched.
I'll make it a point to get it watched, and I am so glad that I watched it. It was a fantastic movie overall, and honestly, I think even the subject matter was handled very well. We'll get into some of the specifics and the actors, and I gotta give him a little credit for that because some people be afraid to take those kind of roles, and Mr. 24 himself hopped right on in there and did a good job with it.
Yeah, a little
Uh,
too good a job.
Right, like it was very, very easily convinced in that movie. So either he's just that great of an actor, or something we need to know. Um, but they cloned Tyrone. Let me find a synopsis for the movie.
I got a synopsis. Everything every hotep has ever told you is true. Imagine a world.
right, and that's about what it is, and kind of how it goes. The movie itself is, I mean, honestly, I would say it's a very clear satire of race relations. It starts off with a black exploitation vibe, even though it's definitely, I would say it's a modern movie. It's not a 70s picture or anything like that, but it has that same feeling right down to the film reel, the grainy film at the beginning of the movie. So when it comes on, the way you see that intro, it definitely takes you back to a lot of the black exploitation films. Um, Mystery, conspiracy, some unique and interesting characters, a lot of colorful characters, if you will, and it's all about the government conspiracy. And that's our movie. That's the movie, and chaos ensues. Um, let's start with the simple rating. If we just go with a 1 out of 10, if you say 1 out of 10 for the movie, um, Teresa, where would you put this movie on a 1 out of 10?
On a 1 out of 10, it was good. I definitely enjoyed it. I'm definitely glad that I watched it. John Boyega and Jamie Foxx and Teyonah Parris all killed it. Um, with all of that being said, though, I probably didn't wouldn't give it as high a rating as a lot of people, because I saw a bunch of people on Facebook and they're like, "Oh my God, this is the best movie. Whatever they did, you know, to make this movie, I need them to do it over and over." And it was definitely good, but I'm gonna say 7,
Okay.
because it also, even though it was really good, there were lots of elements in there of things that I don't usually, gravitate towards. I
Okay.
don't really do comedies. This comedy, the comedy that was like entwined in this drama, though, was funny.
Yeah.
Um, I don't usually do the kind of, the black exploitation, that shaft kind of stuff, but this was good. And, I just keep going back to how, especially John Boyega, just killed it. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say a 7.5.
7.5. Got to give an extra 0.5 just for Boyega.
Right.
Jeffrey, 1 through 10.
Yeah.
Where would you put this movie?
I would probably give it a 8.5, like an 8. Yeah. I think
Okay.
for me this was like right up my alley. I'm I don't sit around watching a lot of black exploitation stuff, but I do watch a lot of like documentaries and interviews of directors, and just kind of trying to understand what it took to kind of be creative at the time. So I definitely appreciate any homage to, the great Black American directors who were, helping pave the way for what cinema was going to look like over the years, that don't always necessarily get their credit. I like to see, there's young Black directors being inspired by our heritage in that industry and our heritage in that field. I think the subject matter, the story that they're telling, the use of metaphor was sometimes heavy handed, but like when it got heavy handed, it was always done in a comedic way. So it never felt like preaching. It felt like, come on, bro, this what it is. Like, it's the chicken. You know what I mean? And, I think I really enjoyed the bridging of comedy and message in a different way than what you might like. Whenever you think message, you think "Don't be a menace," right? Because all those hood movies were trying to tell us messages. As a person who was a young Black boy at the height of that cinema, it was very clear, like they were trying to scare us, like about like they were trying to like scare us for real about what life had to offer if you didn't like stay in school and not run with the wrong crowd and get an education and all that. So, as a, I guess, victim of that sort of programming, this was interesting to watch because it really was like, the hope message of Trey's story and Boys in the Hood. There is no hope. This is like, no, you are here to keep this area perpetually this way. And that's not really, I don't think I've seen a lot of people attack that in various forms of media outside of hip hop, really. So, I really appreciated them attacking that and choosing to go after that subject matter and put white people and Black people under the microscope, not just what they've done to us, but how we've misused our own institutions and businesses and neighborhoods and stuff. They use that as well. And I think, the way that they handled showing that in the movie, it was the right balance of like, it makes you think, but you don't feel like, damn, like I just came out of like a 2-hour plus sermon about what Black people need to do to like get their lives together. So it's a very tough tightrope to walk with this subject matter. because there's also the risk of doing it comedically and being disrespectful, and then people like how we do, we on your head, and
Immediately.
it's like a whole thing. So I think the balance, the acting, the chemistry in the acting was just like I need Teyonah Parris and Jamie Foxx and more stuff together. Like I love John Boyega and his like straight man element to it, but they're like just banter. Like I need them to be playing like somebody parents who like trying to get their kids to like an Ivy League school or some shit like that.
And that would work. That would work.
Yeah. So I think like their chemistry was just really, really great to see. And Jamie Foxx is my favorite actor. I'll be forthright about that. I actually wrote an essay to get a scholarship in college about the person who I like admired the most, and I wrote it about Jamie Foxx. Mind you, this was in 2002, so years before Ray, years before the Oscar. I was just like a big fan from like his show and his stand-up, and my grandmother was very mad. I got the scholarship, and
Wow. I mean,
when I showed up on campus, the guy who checked me in because we had like a scholarship orientation, and I introduced myself. He was like, "Oh, you're the one who wrote about Jamie Foxx." He's like, it was really like refreshing. He's like, "You don't know how many essays I read about Catcher in the Rye and Martin Luther King and all these same people. Everybody's trying to find a different angle to talk about."
To hear something, you know what? I think it's probably the honesty and being realistic, as far as like who we consider our heroes, if you will, or the people we look up to.
Right. Like I'm 18, bro. Like Martin Luther King is not my hero.
Definitely somebody to aspire to, but heroes that's a little strong.
Like I respect him. I never saw Martin Luther King as like I want to be.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, what I'm saying? It's not somebody to necessarily aspire to, but the message is there, and there's no denying that part. I would definitely say I 100% agree with the dynamic between the characters, and honestly, even John Boyega playing the straight man and Jamie Foxx playing the fool, it worked really well. And then having him go back and forth with Teyonah, just their relationship, you could see the love-hate relationship that was there, but at the end of the day, you could also see that there was something different, something special with those two. I would say on a 1 to 10, personally, I think we're all kind of right there in the same ballpark. It doesn't qualify to me. I am kind of blown, and this is not a knock against it, but I was actually a little shocked. It has a 100% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
And I feel like that's one of those things where it's like, no. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's one of those things where because the movie delivered so well to a general audience, I see how it would be just so well received.
This is the type of movie that should have a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, because
and
it's like when we talk amongst each other, we can be like, a little this, a little that, but like in mixed company, I don't have nothing bad to say.
Right, it's a perfect movie. Everything was great. Everything exactly
it's
the way
like,
it was. Don't change a
mixed
thing.
Company, solidarity. I don't know if OJ did it. He got off. Like, what did the jury say?
Right. I mean, was he convicted? I'm just saying. It just believe what you want to believe, but I'm with you there. I would definitely give the movie. I'm right there, and I kind of lean between like a 7.5 and an 8. I think I liked a little bit more of the movie, and because everything that was in the movie is in my wheelhouse. I love comedies. I love sci-fi. I love anything tech and geek. That's going to be like, I would watch every episode of Black Mirror just because of the subject matter in most cases. And to me, this was right along the lines of something you might see on Black Mirror. And because of that, I was like glued. As soon as I started watching, first couple scenes, I'm like, okay, what's happening here? What's happening here? Okay. And the stand, like, if you did not know John Boyega was a star and was just that dude and could really truly act, this movie is a movie that shows you not one, not two, not three, but 4 different faces, and none of them are the same. And he pulled that off incredibly well, believable in every scenario. And it's I was really thrown, like halfway through the movie, I had to remind myself, this dude is from England.
British.
He has
Right.
a very, very
Right.
hard British accent. And I was like, that's my cousin right there. I got a cousin just like him. You know what I'm saying? And
Facts.
it really, like, the fact that it was able to draw me in so much, all credit to that has to go to John Boyega. And not to sit here and just fanboy for him like that, but like, man,
Nah, he
even the
deserves
marketing.
it, man.
No, even the marketing for this was great. I saw an interview clip with
Right.
John Boyega where he and Fontaine were sitting there having a conversation with one another. And I'm sitting there looking at the two of them on the same screen. And I'm like, that is not the same person.
Right.
That is not the same person. And to find somebody who just completely transforms into the role, and he doesn't proclaim to be a method actor or anything. He's just a great and talented actor. And
This really gave me some more. Not that I just didn't have respect for him, but just more. It made me admire him because I hadn't really seen too much with him in it. The whatever part of the Star Wars, I haven't seen yet because I'm just getting into it. But I mean, it really gave me more respect for him, especially as an actor, because it kills me how, to us, American isn't an accent. It's just us. It's just the way we talk. But it kills me how British people can do an American accent. And not only did he do American, he did American hood, like you said, your cousin.
South.
Right.
He was South.
Because
Like,
I'm gonna be real with you. A lot of them British dudes, they can get a basic American accent down, but when it comes to getting like the regional dialects,
Mhm.
sometimes it's off. Like, as much as I like All American, the dude on All American's American accent is not an accent for somebody from South Central LA. Like, nobody, like, so it's passable. It's just like a regular everyday American accent, but it don't sound like somebody from South Central at all. From somebody who lived in LA for like 9 years. Like, I never heard nobody sound like that. But he got the like Atlanta, West Side, like whatever, and there's a lot of places like that in America, but
Mhm.
he got it. He got it down pat. And
I mean, he would shop in Greenbrier Mall, and it would be,
Facts.
you know what I'm saying? He would hang out at the West End. I would catch him down by right over there where like Morehouse and Spelman and Clark, where they hang out. Like, he would be right over there in that mix with my cousins and them.
Mhm. Definitely at the train station.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Most definitely. Jamie Foxx is a comedic wonder, and I love the character that he chose to play. And you got a little bit more insight towards the middle of as we get into like the beginning of the third act, you get a little bit more insight into that character. But the realization that we got for Slick Charles was the fact that he never really, these were memories that were put in his mind, but the fact that he still holds true to them and doesn't move away from them. Just the little things about the movie as you watch and you start to see scenes over and over and over, the consistency with things. Like, every time he complained about that orange juice, I wanted to buy my man some orange juice. He was just mad that he had no juice. All he wanted was some juice. And you know, it's just one of those things where it's like it's kind of a Groundhog's Day effect that they obviously have. Their innocence programmed, they're brainwashed, they're designed to be the people that they are. And once they realize that and just kind of lean into those roles, I again, I know a Slick Charles. You know what I'm saying? I had an uncle who was Slick Charles. And so it's like that's one of the things that makes this movie so easy to watch is these are familiar people. This is a familiar neighborhood. This is a community I've been to. Everybody may not be able to relate to the community that same way, but it's insight into that community. And they do it in a way that's honest and it doesn't feel like a caricature of those roles, of those people. And that's the part that I think like sold it the most. Um, and that really came through with Teyonah's character. When they went to grandma's house, that was a situation where clearly she had a room at grandma's house and that's where she grew up because all her high school medals and trophies and things like that, that's where they were. Um, she was obviously an avid reader growing up, Nancy Drew books. I mean, tons and tons and tons of books. And it's one of those movies when you pay attention to the subtext, the things in the background, the environment, you get so much more on each of these characters. And seeing a character like Teyonah Parris's Yo-Yo, she had dreams and she had aspirations, and something happened. And because something happened, this is the life she's in. And if she just had that opportunity, if she just had that break, and
Right. He was
that's one
very
of those
intelligent.
that's one of those things that you know you hear people, you hear conversations where people say that, you know what I'm saying? I've heard people say in frustration, if I could just get a break, if somebody just give me a chance, you know what I'm saying? I've heard, hell, I've said that, you know what I'm saying? And to see it on screen and see these people and know that all they need is an opportunity to see something different and they would be a completely different person. And you know that ties into the one of the overall themes, in my opinion, people being a product of their environment.
Right. But on top of that, the environment being more designed than people are willing to admit. So if people are just a product of their environment, that's not anything bad, right? Because that's natural. You live somewhere, you're affected by the elements, you're affected by the weather, you're affected by the resources, you're affected literally by what you have access to. But when you go into it and you realize what you have access to is being purposefully controlled and manipulated, well, then I'm not being shaped by my environment. My environment is being shaped by you. So, ergo, I too am being shaped by you and the things you're choosing to do to my environment. And so, I think that's like the first step is okay, look around at this environment and why it is this way. Look at our environment compared to environments of other communities and other races and other, ideologies or whatever, and look at, okay, look, this is how we do it, this is how other people do it. At some point, you got to admit that, like, it ain't just that black people don't know how to do stuff. Like, you look at things historically and you look at policies that are enacted and laws, you look at, even all the way down to as extreme as something as Tulsa or them dropping a bomb on that community in Philly. You know what I mean? Like, crazy things have happened, shooting up Fred Hampton while he was sleeping in bed. Like, crazy things happen to every community leader that really was trying to, like, do something positive to organize the people. When you look at a situation like that, you have to then admit these people are not a product of just their environment, because their environment is not free to flourish naturally the way that our environment is. And so until that happens, until those people take their hands out of those environments,
Right.
you stuck. And then you just have people looking at you like, I don't understand. Like, they choose to live like that. I don't understand why, Why they don't just fix it? Just
Pull
move.
themselves up by their bootstraps.
Right.
Exactly.
And say, ain't no boots. Like they took all
Right.
the boots.
Right.
They blocked off the road. The boot man can't get into town to sell nobody no boots. I got these straps, no boots to put them on.
Right.
And then a lot of times it's a situation where that guy has boots. So because that one person over there managed to get some boots that maybe they made, well, everybody could get boots then because that one person over there has boots, as
Right.
opposed to recognizing some people over here got a whole boot store right in front of their house. And then if they don't like the boots, they can try on another boot, or they can wear one boot each.
And if we want to
It
be
gets
really
deep.
real,
It gets deep.
some of the ones when they get their boots act like they forgot who got them boots for them.
Right.
And they even think they got the boots on their own.
Or they
don't
think
feel
because
no-
they got the boots, they're just like the other people who didn't have to work for their boots.
They will take them boots, brother.
Quick. Or you know what? You can't walk in here with those boots because those boots scuff.
Right.
Are those boots red bottoms? Oh yeah, you can't wear those boots here. Those boots are not acceptable. I mean, it gets wild. It gets wild. One of the things in the movie, so there were obviously a lot of different themes at work and playing out. Jeff, what were some of the ones that stood out the most? What was not so much the overall theme, like what was one of the things that stood out to you the most in terms of the conspiracies?
To me, I think the big ones were just like all the stuff in the food and the church stuff. I mean, the big one. I mean, obviously the big conspiracy. When we talk about that, I don't know. I'm really interested to hear y'all's thoughts because I had some thoughts about that. But I think the underlying.
I'll let you go get your hat before you get into that part.
Nah, the underlying thing of like they're putting shit in the food to make you feel and act this way, to make you stop thinking, to make you lose focus, to make you, it's the same thing with like, the drug. It's basically like, yeah, the food is also drugs being used to control you. There's all the conversations I heard growing up about hormones in the chicken, and that's why kids are bigger and women are shaped differently. I've heard all kinds. I mean, when the uncles get to talking at the barbecue, a lot of stuff gets said. So I think just
you see a couple of these walking around,
right. And even if it's not as crazy as like they're putting a real like actual active drug agent in the chicken at Popeyes or whatever, it really is a commentary on like what types of things you have access to when you live in a place like that. Like that chicken shop is like probably one of the better places that they have to eat if they can't cook on their own. Doesn't look like there's a grocery store really in that town. Probably just that corner store. So they're not getting fresh fruits. They're not getting fresh vegetables. Everything that they're eating is processed in a can, in a bottle. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can't really tell me that like people who live in conditions like that are going to be able to have a strong community. You know what I mean? Like, we can't even get our kids like healthy stuff to eat. It's nowhere for them to go outside and play. So now they lazy and they grow up and they don't feel like they need to leave nowhere because they had an okay life. They don't even know there's a better life on the other side of the bridge. Yeah. So I feel like, everything in the movie was done to basically create like an environment that would be self-sustaining, essentially, right? Like we put a drug dealer, we put a pimp, we put a junkie on the corner, we put, the pastor in the church, we put these random, like racially ambiguous, like white, Arab, whatever people running all the businesses in the community. And voila, like everybody else can be NPCs. You know what I mean? Like y'all just in the background caught up in this web.
And everything
So I think,
fits in a way that was comfortable, that allowed people to be pacified and go about their day to day.
yeah, it's
Nothing
like it was
stood
like
out,
everything
nothing
was,
seemed off.
yeah. But it's also like some of that should seem off. Like nobody that owned none of these places in this black neighborhood is black. You know what I'm
Yeah, no, I
saying?
mean,
Like
we go
this
all the
dude
way
don't
back to
live in
Boys
y'all
in the Hood.
neighborhood.
Lawrence Fishburne had a whole scene
Yeah,
where he talked about how every corner, what do you see? What do you see? And I mean, again, it's one of those things where Boys in the Hood, even when I was younger, seeing that movie for the first time, it was, it was a cool movie to see because, it was like, it was hard, it was gangster, what I'm saying? It had the actors and the rappers that we liked and things like that, what I'm saying? A lot of upcoming stars. What I'm saying? And of course, being a black film, it was like required viewing, and you wasn't cool if you didn't see it. But
right.
I was just young enough for the message to be missed. Like I heard it, but it was all the same kind of stuff my dad would say. It was all the same kind
Yeah.
of stuff my mom would say. It was all the same kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So like if I watched Family Matters, I would get the same message that I would get watching Boys in the Hood. Boys in the Hood just did it in a rated R fashion that was edgier and, what I'm saying, was not really geared towards me, but it was what I was trying to find and be a part of. This movie at this time delivers the same message, but it does it in a way that I think is probably more effective, because after watching the movie, I was literally able to like find so many real life comparisons that I'll be happy to speak on in just a bit. Teresa, same question. What were some of the themes that stood out to you as far as maybe some of the overall themes, the underlying themes? What really stood out to you from this movie?
Well, actually, just sitting here thinking about it, and after you mentioned the 100% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, I'm thinking about the movie, and I'm thinking that, I mean, it was really masterfully put together, from the cast to the storyline, because had it not been endorsed basically by these big actors, Jamie Foxx and John Boyega and Teyonah Parris, like if it had been a low budget movie with some D-list actors, it could have come across as offensive, because I mean, a story about the black people in the hood being controlled by whatever this substance is that they put in the fried chicken.
Right. Oh, and the
That
fried chicken and the grape drink and the
right, exactly.
perm.
That I
I
mean,
mean, it's basically rehashing part of the undercover brother plot.
Right.
yeah, but see, I don't do comedy, so I didn't see that.
But see, that's also one of those things.
I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on Undercover Brother as a person who doesn't like comedy, because
I don't think she'd get through it.
I wouldn't.
Go ahead.
Foolishness. Was it Eddie Griffin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been offensive, but I'm assuming it was black writers.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all know? Okay. And to get these actors,
Jewel Taylor.
It's more of a commentary, on, I don't know, I don't know, but just that 100%, that means everybody liked it. And I'm thinking about the different groups of people there are.
Well, that's and to be clear, the 100% is the audience score.
Right.
The
Everybody
now
who
the
saw it.
review score was a 94%. So it's not like it's a big difference here. It's a good movie, and I think we've all agreed it's a good movie. And the fact that the critic score was a 94% and the audience score was 100%, I feel like part of the problem, well, not the problem, but the reason that stands out to me as an issue is I'm fearful that because of the cast and the acting, and as you mentioned, the big names, some parts of the message might get overlooked and missed
Right.
for desire to support. Like just because, oh, Jamie Foxx, I love Jamie Foxx. Oh, Teyonah Parris, I'm gonna watch anything with her in it. Because that's me. Yeah, let's check that out. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like John Boyega. Oh, that's my guy. Like 3 big names right there. Like it's worth checking out regardless. And if you're entertained, this will be one of those movies where immediately, like you said, if it had had a different cast, and what really stands out to me is like the character of Fontaine. And I thought about this. Anthony Mackie. Anthony Mackie has just a knack for being in all of the quirky, offbeat science fiction kind of movies. You know, people know him as Falcon from Winter Soldier. I mean, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the TV show. Falcon from all the Marvel movies and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? That's Anthony Mackie. We go all the way back, and he was, the main guy in 8 Mile that Eminem had to battle against. His real name's Clarence. That guy, Anthony Mackie. Anthony Mackie is probably, I think, in my opinion, from what I've seen lately, he is one of the most prolific sci-fi Black actors. And it's rare that you see somebody who's kind of genre specific, but every time I turn around, Anthony Mackie is doing some kind of sci-fi, and he's another person that I think, like, I can't wait till the new Captain America movie comes out and he really gets a chance to shine and be that leading man, because I think he shared a little bit of the spotlight in Falcon and the Winter Soldier with Sebastian Stan. They co-led that show.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take anything away from Sebastian Stan as Winter Soldier. Like, his Bucky Barnes, I'm with it. But they co-led that show. Mm-hmm. When he gets this next movie, and that is his movie, and he's the lead, I'm very excited about that, because some of the other shows and movies that he's done, when he did 2nd season of Altered Carbon, I think I like that season more than the 1st season. And if you haven't seen Altered Carbon, again, I'm the guy who loves Black Mirror. Check out Altered Carbon. It is a fantastic show. Completely sci-fi, but check it out. He did one. He's done a lot of like period pieces. Another person who's like a fantastic actor. I think if you would put somebody like Anthony Mackie, who just kind of, how can I say this? Anthony Mackie
does not get lost in any role.
He doesn't get lost in any role. He is a working actor. He likes to act. You know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily feel that he's as selective in the roles that he takes. I don't know that he's curated a niche for himself yet. And I think that's the difference between superstars in cinema and actors. You know what I'm saying? You have people like Tom Cruise, who's not going to take any role. He's only going to do this role. Movies are written around him being in the role. And if it's not going to be him, then the movie probably gets scrapped or something. You know what I'm saying? You get to a point, actors, oftentimes they get to a point where they can be extra selective because they make enough money per movie, and not to get into that part, but they start to be selective. And then you have people who, they just do a lot of films. Some of them are amazing, and some of them are just movies that they did, and I think back to like somebody like Bruce Willis, who's absolutely a leading man, but has been in so many like side project movies where it's just like, my man just likes to act, apparently. You know what I'm saying?
Well, came out at the end, some of that was not.
Well, no. I think
choice.
at the end there was definitely
They was definitely weekend
they
at
was making a check
Birmingham through their movies.
No, they well, I think he did a lot of that too because he kind of knew what was going on and was trying to like pump out as many as he can and get and collect those checks. I think honestly that's what that is. But even before that, you know, and I don't want to put it in the same category as somebody like a Steven Seagal or, you know what I'm saying, like a, you know, like you have Wesley Snipes or Jean-Claude Van Damme who found themselves in situations where they had to contractually do a number of movies for whatever reason, right? And so those movies just got made. Anthony Mackie, he's still kind of, if you look at his like credits, my man has been in a lot of stuff in a short time.
Yeah.
All of it ain't bangers. A lot of it's really
No.
good though. You know what I'm saying? A lot of it really is good. And it's one of those things where I think, to Teresa's point, if we had had Anthony Mackie in this role, being that it is science fiction, being that it is kind of a conspiracy type movie, and he's, I think, a talented enough actor to have pulled off this kind of role. Maybe not the same way Boyega did, but I think he could have done it. It would have changed the entire movie. And I think the movie it would have fell flat and it wouldn't have delivered the same oomph that we got as a result of having John Boyega. So my fear with that 100% is that there's probably some story that just got glossed over because we were looking at pretty faces on the screen.
Well,
I think
I don't know, man. People are pretty. I feel like honestly, people are pretty harsh when it comes to reviewing movies. Everybody thinks being mean about a critique means you are doing a critique the right way. And I think people are especially quick to be upset about movies with subject matter like this, where basically it's just like, yeah, man, it's white people. They're the ones doing it to us. Like that's the kind of movie that, you know, they're like, this is woke, blah blah blah. I guess everybody's paying attention to Barbie and being mad about that. But I think that my issue with it is I kind of feel the same way a little bit. I'm like, did y'all get this? Because like some people should be mad about this movie, but I haven't
that's
heard
what I'm
nobody
wondering.
about it.
Yeah,
With
because I'm
100%,
just like,
I'm just wondering if you got 100% audience score. Does that mean that all of the people who watch the movie are alike, or
I think some people who liked it.
Who watched the movie, why did y'all?
I think some people like. I think some people liked it just off the strength of like the writing, the acting, how the cinematography, like they were like, yeah, this is like what a movie should be. It feels like some black, like for them, it feels like when we go and watch some like Roman Polanski or like some director who's like very stylized, and it's like, all right, you know, this shit just gonna be like some weird overarching metaphor. Like people who go on Rotten Tomatoes and spend a lot of time on there really do like those kinds of movies. So I get why they like this movie because they're probably watching it from a very technical standpoint versus like, I think us, we're kind of looking at it more from a like real life standpoint of like, okay, this is like a message. Okay. And I'm looking at it like this message, I feel like got to be going over people's heads. Like some people, or they think it's just like a joke. They really just think like, oh, there's no way nobody thinks that. And then it's like, actually, that's like one of them freshman year college moments where you're like, oh, black people, it's like, actually, we
it's so you talk about the real life. So I live east of Atlanta, and during the course of my day, for the job that I have, the company I work for, I do a lot of driving, and I find that it would be extremely advantageous for me to make a lunch and take my lunch daily, but just for the convenience sake, because I am all over the place driving around, I do tend to eat out a lot. That gets to be expensive, and not every location is, good food or good for you or whatever the case may be. And sometimes finding those better options isn't always available. There's a McDonald's everywhere, and this is not knocking McDonald's or anybody that loves it, but it's like I can always count on finding a McDonald's and I get me a 6-piece nugget and double cheeseburger. It's $3. It's not the worst thing in the world. I could be eating. I get through the day, get home, cook dinner or something. There are 2 brands. When I tell you, these things pop up everywhere. And I was not, and the funny part is, so there's this company called Crispy Crunchy Chicken. Crispy Crunchy Chicken. You tend to find it in some of the more convenient store style gas stations, where they may have like a little deli counter separate from the checkout registers, that sort of thing. And usually if it's a place that like if you think of your Quick Trip or your racetracks, where they have like the whole bakery and they got a whole full kitchen, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a luxury if you find one of those sometimes out in these various places that I have to travel. But when you don't have those big kind of gas stations, you can always go into like one of the smaller mom and pop kind of gas stations that, you know, it's the random 76 or this one Texaco because there's no other gas stations for miles in any direction. They have 2 brands typically. They either have Hunt's Brothers Pizza by the slice, or they have Crispy Crunchy Chicken. There used to be 2 gas stations in my work area that had Crispy Crunchy Chicken and one place that had Hunt's Brothers Pizza. 1 year later, every gas station in the area has one or the other. I was cleaning out my work vehicle the other day, and I couldn't help but to notice when I was throwing out my trash, I had nothing but empty pizza boxes and empty chicken boxes. And when I was watching this movie the other day, man, let me tell you something. I was like, dang, they got me. They got me. Remember how I used to always talk about the crispy, crunchy chicken, how good it was, and how we should get some, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, bro, they got me. They got me. It's in the chicken. And it's such an eye-opening thing to be like, I find that I patronize certain places that I probably wouldn't stop because they have that sign out front that says crispy, crunchy chicken or Hunt's Brothers Pizza. Just from a marketing standpoint, it's a symbol. It's a, you know, it's a, what do you call them? A logo, a brand that I recognize, and automatically it makes me more comfortable being at that location. In some places, some of these places out east, I shouldn't necessarily feel as comfortable. But if I see a crispy, crunchy chicken, it's like, well, hey, they got good chicken. You know what? It'll be fine. It'll be all right. You know what? I shouldn't worry about anything. Tell you, man, they got me. And it's like, it blows my mind that was something I had never. Now I can't help. That's the only thing I can see. I took my lunch today. I was like, we is not getting no crispy, crunchy chicken nowhere. We is not getting Hunt's Brothers Pizza. They tricking me with the pizza, man. But I just think that was such a unique position to take and to show. Because when you see the products that they were putting out and where those products were being used and how those products were being used in the communities, you wouldn't even notice it. It would literally just fly under the radar. Oh, the church has communion. And when they have communion, you're going to have like the little grape drink because it's going to be like, you know, oh, this is the little wafer cracker and the little cup. And you know what I'm saying? This is the body, this is the blood, and you're done. You know what I'm saying? And you don't think, I've never once thought, what kind of juice is that?
It's Welch's.
at the church I grew up in. That's what it was. It was
Right.
roaches. But then you think about it. It's like it's nothing that. There are other churches that do communion. What are they using? Are they using Welch's or are they using great drink? You know, and I wonder about some of the hair care products because on the box, like I like that they had the one old man who sat outside the gas station, you know, and it was like every time Fontaine would go in, it was the same routine, like clockwork. Like I said, it was like Groundhog's Day for him. It was pre-programmed. That was his routine. Knock on the door, eating the same little basic sandwiches, ride around in that old school car, go to the gas station, buy his 40, get his scratch-off ticket, not win anything, toss it, pour the old man a little drink, but you start catching on to what the old man's saying. Straighter is better.
Towards the end, yep.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, now I'm sitting here wondering, like, okay, so the old man, did he escape? Wait, how does he know that? You know, and it's like, I wanted more from that. I'm glad they didn't give it to me because I feel like it would have ruined something if they had. But it was just, this movie was just so well written.
Muted.
All the little details.
And I was going to say, I feel like the old man was another metaphor for just like the generational disconnect in the Black community, right? Like a lot of folks don't have, you know, their families not really set up the way they used to be for a lot of people with, like, you know, the elders, and we're not necessarily even family, but just like community in general. You know, like when I was growing up, for old Black man, like, stopped and talked to you, you stopped and talked to him. You know what I mean? And over time, that kind of decays because the old Black men that we start seeing in the neighborhood more and more are, you know, people who, you know, through programming we've been taught that we shouldn't listen to because they're on drugs, alcoholics, hard times, whatever they did, whatever situation they were in that put them like on that corner. You know, we end up being taught to devalue those people, but in the end, we end up devaluing a lot of the information that like our elders could be passing to us because we don't sit and talk to them. It's like when they sit and they talk to us, they're not necessarily they're not talking to us for us to just give us the answers. It's like sometimes they're talking to us to let us know, like, you need to go search for the answers. You need to go, you know, figure out what it means to be in this world. You need to figure out what's really, really going on. And if I tell you, you're not going to believe me. If that old man has sat on the corner and been like, young blood, they kidnapping people and holding people underground in the cellar and blah, 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 like, they're not going to believe that. Nobody's believing that.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's like, what does it take? You know, what does it take to kind of close that gap? Because closing that gap is how they figured out how everything was going on, learning how to communicate with the elder of the community, even though, you know, traditionally in movies, we like to see elders of the community as like wizards or like scholars, professors. Well, in some communities, the Jays are the elders of the community and they know what's going on. Just because they're dealing with other stuff doesn't necessarily always mean they're completely untethered from reality and untethered from, like, at least having ideas about how things should move in certain communities.
Yeah. That's a very good metaphor. And I think that's a better explanation of the character than I had given credit for initially. And I appreciate that because that actually gives a little bit better insight as to why he was there. Because the first thing I looked at, I was like, oh, he must have escaped. He got out. And because of everything that happened, he's not right. So, you know, people just think he just be talking, but he's really remembering. And, you know,
he was there. He saw it all happen. He saw the trucks come in that poured the concrete for all them buildings underneath.
You know, and it's one of those things, like, again, like you said, when he tried to tell people, they probably thought it was crazy, put him in you know what I'm saying, put him off to the side. They ignored him. And eventually, just to escape the pain from it all, you know, he probably self-medicated to a degree. And that's why he is where he is now. And
and he stopped trying, except for in his own little way, you know. He Fontaine get out of his car, and the guy's like, you got that new car smell. When he said that, I was like,
yeah.
Because he said that before, right after the clone woke up the first time.
Yeah.
So
and
I was like, he knew. So, yeah.
It's like, straighter is greater. Straighter is greater. You know what I'm saying? Like, where do people go when they're at the end of the line?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, he'll always point you in the right direction. I mean, like, every clue that came from him was obviously, like, you know, it was spot on, and that was the point. But in my mind, I was just trying so hard. I almost wanted him to be an older Fontaine that had already escaped or something. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but I feel like that would have been too much, and that would have taken away from the importance of the character. Because we got something different later on anyway. So, so yeah, I think overall some of those themes and the depictions of the stuff that they showed us, the way everything was being manipulated, the way things were being controlled, a lot of
and
that.
I want to say one more thing about the old man too, just to piggyback on your point about just how he ends up in that situation. It's like, imagine knowing that your entire community is rigged. Like once a lot of people find out that how rigged the game is and how far behind they are, they don't see a need in continuing to play no more. You know what I mean? It's like if I get in the starting blocks next to Usain Bolt, after 3 steps, I know I've lost that race. But I gotta now. You want me to just run down the track? Everybody else done. Right. I'm still running by myself. For what? For your amusement? Absolutely not. Like, it's all rigged, and it's a lot of people who feel, the situation is rigged to a point where they don't really have hope because they're never going to be able to live the kinds of lives that they dream of for themselves because of the circumstances that have been stacked against them. And I think a lot of times people often characterize those people as, oh, you're a quitter, you gave up, this, that, and the third, but they might come from the situation, the standpoint, the logic of like, okay, well, ain't nothing gonna happen to me. I'm gonna sit out here on this corner. Youngblood gonna pour me a little sippy sip every day.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't real opportunities coming to this town. They gonna program who they want to program to do whatever they want to do, and when it's time to get rid of me, they gonna get rid of me. So why? What, I'm gonna go get a job?
Right.
Start a family in this environment. Try to fall in love. Try to have any sort of semblance of real human connection in this place where I know a bunch of y'all is clones. Like, what else? Like, what? I'm sitting on the corner too. Like, but the reality is that's how a lot of people feel, just about the hand that they got dealt unfairly. We talk about a lot of the older veterans that came home from World War I, World War II, didn't get the benefits that they deserve.
Promise.
Other people, go all the way back to slavery, 40 acres and a mule. How much is 40 acres of land worth in today's economy? You know what I mean? And the ones who did get it had it snatched back because of manifest destiny and all this other BS that they want to make up. So really, it's like the game is rigged. Like, you start looking through history, you start looking at the laws, you start looking at who wins, you start looking at everything, and it's just like, who wants to play a rigged game?
I mean, it's some of the first things that come to mind just based on that rigged game statement, of course, is like, Simone Biles. They created whole rules because this girl was so insanely talented and so far ahead of the competition that they outlawed moves that she could do because no one else could do
Because
them.
no one, yeah, that historically they do it. They've done it for decades.
Which right away is like the exact opposite of anything competitive. If
Right.
I am naturally capable of doing something that you can't do, if the contest is to say that everybody's supposed to be equal and we want to see who the most talented is, and we're awarding prizes based on that, stop moving the finishing line every time we pull ahead or every time a person pulls ahead. And honestly, if that goes in to some degree, I'll even go as far as to say for any scenario, if it's competitive and all things being equal, there's a person who stands out as being the best at something, let that person be the best. Let
But you
that
know,
person be the best.
they didn't want her to be the best. They didn't want her to be better than them.
They didn't want her to be so much better than them that they had young girls trying to break their neck to do what she does. So
Or
it's like,
or
no,
they
seriously,
didn't
that's
want
what.
people
No,
who just gave up before they started.
well, no, my wife was a gymnast growing up, so she's all plugged in on all things gymnastics, like
Oh no, I'm
Olympics,
in terms of
world
the safety
championships.
aspect. I get that, but
Yeah,
to the point earlier, they didn't want people just sitting on the corner feeling like the game is rigged because they can't do
right.
what the new standard
They
is.
didn't want their people sitting on the corner feeling like the game is rigged.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you have to rig the game. It's like the quote from Toni Morrison. She was on, I think she was on Charlie Rose, and she was just like, if you have to if you have to keep other people on their knees, or you have to stand on people to feel tall, you know, what are you? It's like, take this one thing away that's giving you all your value, and what do you really have to offer? What do you have to offer? And for a lot of people, when you take that label, when you take that racial label off, they have nothing to really like. They feel like that they can really like hang their hat on in terms of being great, being important, being special. Um, and that's a shame, because everybody should have something that makes them feel important and special, but you shouldn't have to like do it on the backs of like the subjugation of like anybody who doesn't look like you or feel like you feel. You should be able to have your freedom and have other people have their freedom, and learn how to cohabitate with multiple versions of personal freedom going on. And I think, that's really part of the reason why I feel like historically, when I look at history, and, I grew up with my grandmother, so she had me watching, documentaries. I was watching, other kids was going to Six Flags in summer. I was watching complete Eyes on the Prize documentary series, and Ken Burns jazz, and, the base, just a bunch of historical stuff, and just learning, really trying to always kind of contextualize like, where were the Black people when all this was going on. Like, that was really important for me to know just growing up when we're studying history. Okay, I know we're not talking about Black people, but I need to know what was going on with Black people during this time. So I was always doing my own research, and it does get to a place where you're like, yeah, man, this shit's rigged. It's on purpose, and nobody's really gonna like ever really relinquish what they have. Like, they can feel bad for you, but not bad enough to like share what they got
I mean,
sometimes.
truthfully, I genuinely believe, and I think it's more of a human nature thing. Just human nature.
Well, I guess another point I was going to make, sorry, was that historically, when you look in America at like all these times of great unity of any sort, great times of economic advancement, of any sort, great times of technological advancement of any sort. Like, maybe they weren't in the front of the pictures that the white people took to put in the history books, but they were on the front line of every single innovation that happened in America, economically, industrially, socially, culturally. Like, it's all built off the back of that. And when other marginalized communities came to America, we were the ones who accepted them, embraced them, allowed them to be parts of our community. And they, did their thing. And white people said, hey, like, you can come over here with us a little bit if you just don't mess with them no more. And so it really is this thing of, I think there's a fear that, like, Black people in America, if left to our own devices, could amass power very easily and very quickly. Like, that's been proven numerous times throughout the course of American history. And that fear is, to quote, I know for some people he's problematic, but to quote Louis Farrakhan, the fear is that if we were ever to get in a real position of power, we would do to them what was done to us. And it's not fair because you're judging us off of your own mindset when Black people don't think like that. We don't want to get power to hurt people. We just want, like, most of the time, we just want stuff to be fair. And the more you start living in a world where things are never fair, the more you start believing that things being unfair is fair. And that's how you twist people into doing, self-destructive things and doing things that harm their own communities and themselves. Because it's just like, even if I did all the right things, it's not as sure of a chance for me to have the same success as someone else in the same circumstance, with the same resume, with the same grades, with the same, maybe not first and last name, because, they've shown that certain people get interviews based off of names and cultural recognition behind those names. So, this movie really does kind of just like, and even just like the old, I didn't even think this deeply about the old man on the corner until we started talking about him. And I kind of just put that two and two together of, like, the generational gap, because there aren't really any other older people in the movie. His mom is fake. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that was another one. Mamas that be in the room all the damn time. It's like, come on out that room, mama.
Oh man, it hurt me so much when he said, "I just need to see you," and he opened that door, and that tore me up for a second. Like, being someone who, like, while my mother is not the matriarch of our family, when I tell you, my mom has had the same phone number and this is one of those things people laugh and joke about, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, my mom had the same phone. My mom has had literally the same phone number since I was like 6. The same phone number. And when I tell you, every member of my family knows that phone number. Not just because she's had it that long, but because my mom is the one that always gets the phone call. Because my mom is the one that's always going to answer the phone call. People refer to my mom as G-Mommy. People that are not her grandkids call her G-Mommy. She's one of those big mama types where everybody loves my mom. And watching that scene with him, thinking if I found myself in that position, not being able to do that, it really, like, it hit me for a moment, because I know that I know people that find themselves in that boat, that find themselves in that situation. And in some cases, it's not because that person's fake. It's because that person just isn't that person for them. You know what I'm saying? But whether that person is, just unfortunately not with us anymore, or that was a very powerful moment in the movie. And I think it was one of the, like, just the way that whole scene played out, his moment of rage, his acceptance of the situation, and then his ultimate, like, I'm literally getting a little choked up just talking about that scene. That was perhaps one of the most powerful scenes in the movie, because when he's standing on the other side of that door, oh man, that was
Absolutely, because he was so stoic throughout the rest of the movie. You know, that Fontaine didn't show any emotion. He just went and did what he had to do. But and that really showed more of the range too for John Boyega, but the range for this movie as well. I mean, because that was definitely, excuse me, the most touching point of the movie for me as well. Because Fontaine, he was a rock, you know.
Yeah, he was. I mean, even in the other scene when they were eating, and he's like, I've known this man 5-6 years. I've never seen him laugh, and they just sitting there giggling, laughing. He's like, I've never seen, I've never seen him laugh. Wait a minute. I've never seen him laugh. And then he, coming to the realization that the giggle powder that you know what I'm saying, the giggle powder did whatever it did. And that scene, credit to Jamie Foxx, because the way he handled that little scene was so great. To see him like, oh, I'm gonna keep a little bit of this, put it in his little pouch. Then he's talking to the guy. And he, just the way they did that. And that's kind of, I think, what you were saying as far as like the comedy, the way they kind of sprinkled the comedy in, it fit and kept it from being like goofy.
Mm-hmm.
It was just,
and it kept it from being too heavy.
Yeah. They were just funny moments, and the fact that all of the comedic scenes were deadpan and not really played for laughs.
Right.
Except for that elevator scene.
Right.
And I thought
that was perfect.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of stupid. So
right. And that was one of those scenes that was specifically played for laughs. The only thing that would have made it, like, it would have been over the top if Boyega had got in on the act. So, but it was also like suitable to be like, okay, his character wouldn't have done that anyway. But because of the dynamic between Yo-Yo and Slick Charles, like, that's probably what they
between their dynamic between them and John Boyega, because he's just like, they messing with him too. They're like, we don't ever see him laugh. We're gonna see if we can like break him, like if we can be silly, if we can annoy him, something, because the mood needed to be lightened. He was basically he was a powder keg the entire movie, and you could just feel like it was just like a few scenes where you were like, is this the one where he's gonna snap? And it ended up being that scene with the mother. I think we could go super Hotep theory. Represents the disconnect between our people and the motherland.
Okay.
I'm not gonna go that far. I mean, it could be, but I'm not gonna.
Wait. See the phone call. There was no lifeline there. Like, I mean, a lot of messages in the movie. And I think all of them very good messages, very important messages. And there were two other parts that really stood out to me in the movie, and I want to mention these two parts. We can discuss them independently, as you see. I just want to make sure I mention them so we can get to them. Kiefer Sutherland.
Well, too believable, buddy.
That's a hell of a role. I mean, it definitely a little too believable, but also like a little bit of credit to him for taking this kind of role, because I don't really feel like I see Kiefer Sutherland in just like all of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember him from Young Guns, Young Guns 2, skip forward to 24. You know what I'm saying? And it's like I'm sure he did some. Oh, and he was in the vampire movie when I was a kid. You know,
Lost Boys.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like I don't just have this extensive repertoire to pull from when I think of like my top 3 Kiefer Sutherland movies. Like I, got nothing. And so it's very easy to take an actor and attach them to a role like that. It'd be kind of a throwaway role for them. But to allow yourself to be associated with this specific role, so you gonna be the man in this movie?
He's acting.
Right.
He's a
right.
Just like when people be like, "Yeah, I really wanted to play the Joker." Like what?
Like what kind of issues do you have that was your dream role?
Right.
That's not, And I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand that. You hear a lot of actors when they get interviewed and they play their first like bad guy role, they do get to have a little bit more fun in being the villain as opposed to having to be the perfect hero and knight in shining armor and stuff like that. And a lot of times they even try to go in and they don't necessarily play villain, they play anti-hero or whatnot. But to come in and not historically be known for being the bad guy, like I do want to, golf clap for Kiefer Sutherland because he was convincing. He was, and that's not necessarily a good thing in this case, but he was convincing. But it was also like not just this Mystery X the man kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Put a
it
face
was
on him.
right. It was that guy, him. I know what he looks like. I could pick him out another time. And so
I've seen him.
right. You know what I'm saying? And to me, it's kind of the same thing. Like, and this is really funny. When you think of somebody like a Leonardo DiCaprio playing Candy, you know what I'm saying? It's like you did that role really, really well. Like, really well. But at the same time, like that is now forever associated with you. And you didn't necessarily shy away from it. And if you're going to be the bad guy, be the best bad guy you can be
right
in that moment. And that's what I look at when I see Kiefer Sutherland in this movie. I'm like, they wrote it well enough where he didn't have to go there. he have to go candy with it. But he was just a step under that. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not as familiar with his work because I didn't watch 24. So I don't have like this like with Leonardo DiCaprio, even though he played like Homeboy a little too well, I can still go to like Romeo and Juliet, Titanic, Catch Me If You Can. Like that's not the first thing I think of. But
True.
I be looking at these actors where it's like, I ain't been seeing you doing no acting like this before. Like this feel like you acting real good. Like you very believable right now.
Like you came out and gave your Oscar performance on this role. Like
easy,
that's
Jack
what
Bauer.
they're going to tell you is that they're acting. They have range, and enough to make it believable.
Oh yeah, I mean, and there again, Kiefer Sutherland is not just this. He's probably just like he's a B+ movie star.
You wouldn't call Kiefer Sutherland A-list?
No. He don't do enough.
A-list is like Brad
Name the
Pitt.
last wait. Name the last Kiefer Sutherland movie you saw.
But he's been around
that wasn't
forever.
But
that wasn't the question.
He's Hollywood royalty though.
He is absolutely royalty. No.
But not
that's why I couldn't give him a B. I had to make him a B+.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Princess Anne is technically a princess, but who cares?
Like I can't put him in the same category as B movie actors. I recognize that, but he's not someone who you don't. He had a show. He had 24. He's been in some movies, yeah. But
Designated
like I said,
survivor.
He's been in some movies. Okay.
okay. I mean, the three movies that came to mind for me: Lost Boys, Young Guns 1 and 2, and I'm gonna count that as one movie because he played the same role in both, and Stand By Me. That's it. And in two of those movies, he was the same guy. You know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't have just this huge repertoire where I'm like, oh, you going to see that new Kiefer Sutherland movie? You know what I'm saying? Like that's not the conversation we have. It. He's been out there. He's done some movies. Yeah, he's had some role. You know what? Okay, he was the bad guy in spoiler Phone Booth with Colin Farrell. You know what I'm saying? He was the guy with the rifle trained on Colin Farrell the whole movie. You don't find that out to the end of the movie, so they wasn't marketing the movie with it being Kiefer Sutherland. You know what I'm saying? And it was kind of like this, where there's a bad guy in the movie. It's Kiefer Sutherland. You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm giving him credit for having done the role and did a good job acting and made it believable without making me hate the character or the actor Kiefer Sutherland. You know what I'm saying? Like that is the credit that I'm giving him. Plot twist. John Boyega was the bad guy all along. Assimilation is better than annihilation. What? Jeff, you muted because I know this part. I want to get some feedback on this. Teresa, I need feedback on this.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hot flash.
Gotcha. Got your water. You got your drink handy.
My cup is empty.
Assimilation is better than annihilation. I don't know how I feel about that character, man. I felt, I got all in my feelings at the end of that. While I understood the motivation, I cannot say that I was okay with the methodology.
What do you mean?
So
of it being old John Boyega?
Oh no, that was a beautiful plot twist that I didn't see coming. I'm talking about the character of Old Fontaine, of original Fontaine, of Dr. Fontaine, I guess. When we think of when that character got to talking and he was talking about his brother Ronnie and what happened and everything that went down. Of course, I'm right there with him and I'm like, do what you got to do, bro. I get it. Like, handle your business. And it's like, but wait, so you trying to, okay, wait. What's happening here? And if what I saw was the same thing, you're trying to take characters like the what was the Fontaine he had programmed for him, like his bodyguard Fontaine? Ernest or something? Chester. So you're trying to take a Chester and you're trying to turn him into the manager of the chicken shack. That's you're
No, what he was doing was basically genetically turning black people into white people, but they were still black. So he was basically making clones.
You turning Chesters into the managers of the chicken shack.
Yeah.
Well, it's not for them to be the manager of the chicken shack. It's for them
character
to go out.
The person who the white guy with the fro.
Oh, you're turning like on the path of
the
like
physical
evolution.
Person.
Yeah.
Right. You're changing this person into that physical person.
Yeah.
And the guy who was the clerk at the gas station.
Yes.
The guy who was jamming out
The
to
clerk
Michael
every
Jackson.
damn where.
Right.
Right.
Basically. You know what I'm saying? Like turning them into that person, because assimilation is better than annihilation. And I'm like, but bro, you are annihilating. But you don't see that? Like that part right there, that hurt. And then, because it'd be your own people. It'd be your own people, man. And to see that character, first of all, like when I saw that older character, it took me a moment because I was like, "Who's that?" Is that Keith
I
David?
had to look it up.
I looked and I was like, at first, I thought they were going to take an actor like a Keith David or, you know what I'm saying, somebody, one of the older black thespians, and put him in that role to be the older version. But then to look and actually be like, oh, wow. My man, like I said, my man just did his thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just did his thing. But what are your thoughts on that, Teresa? Assimilation is better than annihilation.
Can't really speak on that. That's one of those instances where I don't know. I watch a movie really for entertainment, and a movie really doesn't have to do very much more than that for me to think it's a good movie. I just am
You
there.
make that hard left down that pathway. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's deep.
With you,
I'm
it was
not
like,
trying to
whoa,
think
this is
that
not what I
hard.
signed up for.
It's like finding out your date is a hotep in the middle of dinner.
Right.
I'm like, oh.
So you just gonna hand the menu to me on my left side? Oh, yeah.
And that's when I shut down, when I have to think. So
Yeah, it definitely caught me off guard for them to go to that point, but I also commend them for Jewel Taylor did an excellent job in writing that segment, because while I was upset with the character and hated what was happening, I also found that I was like, I get it. Your motivations are justified.
kind of justified, kind of that anti
Yeah,
villain
it's like
type thing,
right. It's like
except not less anti, he was
right,
it's
like
just the villain. But I do appreciate how that ending was written, with the three John Boyega characters. That was tight.
yeah. Now it had it like the moment was packed with moments, like
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying.
That
And
ending though with the doctor, and he's like, "I'm not a clone." I was like, "But so and so is."
yep.
So I was proud of myself for getting there 2 seconds before the movie did. So,
See, and the thing that threw me was every time I saw Chester, I was like, I'm trying to think, like movies like the Will Smith movie Gemini Man, and what was the other one? Oh, you know what? We can really go there. Star Wars Attack of the Clones, where Jango Fett wanted to keep one clone unaltered for himself that he could train and raise as a son. When you see those moments where it's like, for somebody like the character of Chester, who knows exactly what he is and is so programmed and ingrained in the system. Like, finish my phrase for me, Jeff. I can't. What's the words I'm looking for? To find somebody that's just so a part of what's taking place and going on, that they're just complacent and they allow things, and they're given a sense of it's what we were talking about earlier, where like they have boots, and because they have boots, they act some kind of way. And I think it was just knowing that Chester, like, I feel like he really hesitate. You know, like, does that make sense? Like when they was fighting.
I feel like with Chester, and I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back to old John Boyega too. But I feel like with Chester, the reality is you're only valued that like Chester is only valuable because he cannot step out of line. Like that is the type of black man you have to be the kind of black man that old John Boyega thinks that the world will accept, right? So when you see like, you know, Chester and Fontaine being the same clone really is a visualization of the same person given different circumstances will be a different person essentially. But both people were put in a position where they are only valuable as long as you stay within the parameters of who I say you can be. When you try to step outside of that, that's when you are a problem. That's when they get the scene when they're outside the car and they're trying to shoot the white man and he says the code word and now he's got a gun to a black woman's head. Now he's got a gun to his own head. Now, you know what I mean? It's like you are like that is the level of control that is desired over our people and over our community, to where I can turn you easily into somebody who would just shoot a black woman in the head dead on the street just through programming and control. And it was illustrated like more quickly there, but like we see that all the time in our communities. You know, we see that all the time with, you know, we're starting to see rising, you know, levels of self-harm and self-ending in our community as well. And I think like with Chester, it really is this thing of like, he is the embodiment of the ideal black man from someone's perspective. But that perspective is someone who is very much on a quest for the acceptance of others. And they think that the path to that acceptance is a lack of resistance. Like just blend in, do away with everything that makes you special, do away with everything that your ancestors taught us and that we've passed down. It's time for us to step ahead into the future and just be Americans. You know, I've seen, you know, some people saying those types of things, trying to get money so they can be Republican presidential candidates. It ain't gonna happen, brother. Like, you may as well give up on that dream now. But I do think like it goes to my larger point about older John Boyega period, which is that like I feel like I kind of just came away with this theory that this movie is kind of it's almost like a reckoning of the choices made from civil rights on forward and the types of people who the black community kind of on some levels chose to rally behind, but on other levels were guided to rally behind after the death of, you know, Dr. King and Malcolm X. And, you know, even there was like that juxtaposition that was placed with those two of like, which kind of black man do you want to be? And, you know, the quest for integration, the quest for acceptance
do you over.
No, I'm good without the kufi. But the
no. I was gonna say that's you just find yourself in a situation like, do you want to go to Xavier's Home for the Gifted, or do
Right.
you want to go over to this mutant island? You know,
Right. Because Xavier's Home for the Gifted is they're teaching you how to use your powers, and you're gonna be a stronger mutant. But you're gonna have to go out here and fight for a bunch of motherfuckers who don't even think you're human. Meanwhile,
Right.
over here in Magneto, you might not become like a better like fighter and tactical strategist per se, but nobody's putting you on the front line of a war fighting for
Against
people
you.
who hate you. And it does come down to a point of like, okay, what if the focus all this time had not been on getting people to accept us, but getting ourselves to accept each other? Because I feel a lot of times like that kind of that ideology that old John Boyega has
No shit. I could not think
creates
of
the
your
Chesters.
name.
And the
Yes.
Chesters are the people who look down on the Fontaines, even though y'all are the exact same nigga. You just had a different environment than him. And your environment was controlled in a much different way than his was. But if you put him, if y'all switched, he would thrive in your environment, and you would probably thrive in that environment as well, if you can call it that. Because
I believe that Chester would have been just. I believe Chester probably would have taken out Isaac first, and I believe that Fontaine would look good in that suit.
right,
You know what I'm saying? Like you
right.
said, it's the same person, different situation.
And so when I think about, potential messages of the movie or just things that kind of come to my head, that really boils down to, a lot of the stuff that I've been watching. I'm kind of curious as to like, and even just seeing it in myself and just changing, some of the dialogue that I try to have online or the way I engage people. Because I used to be very much one of those people. Is like, white people, how come you're not watching XYZ? You know what I mean? White people, you want to talk to me about Friends, but you never even heard of Living Single with your rip. You know what I mean? And it's
Right.
like, at the end of the day, like, they're not gonna watch it. I've learned this. The pandemic taught me, like, some people was in the house for 2 years and just decided to watch Community and Friends and The Office
The
all over
Office
again.
over and over.
Yeah.
You didn't do none of the reading,
Parks and
like
Rec, The Office, and
the
Community.
great Okie Doka 2020. Everybody took to the streets and told us who's gonna do better, what books do we need to read, what do we need to watch, and you ain't do none of it. And so what is the point of constantly trying to engage people on your culture thoughtfully who only see it as a commodity? If they're only going to treat you as a commodity, then I'm only going to treat you as a customer. When you come to me and talk to me about something, I'll engage you.
Wait, let me clip that. Damn, let me clip that. Let me clip that. Message.
Right. But like for me, that's just how it feels. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm done with anything that even feels like is pandering to another culture to just try to see where we're coming from, change hearts and minds and all that stuff like that. Like, the reality is there's cold hard data that shows and proves all of this stuff. If people really wanted to fix it, they would fix it. They find money for any and everything else. So there's got to be a reason why they don't want us to have none for real. So it is what it is. Cut your losses and try to live your life amongst people who value you and value your culture and value what you have to say beyond figuring out how they can just remake it and repackage it themselves. But I do think it was very much a commentary on just some of that, like that black bourgeoisie that came out of, I think, the civil rights movement and some of the advances that were made for some in that respect. I think it was just a commentary on them and how, they got bootstraps and started looking down on people who don't have boots because they forgot what it was like when they didn't have it. Like they forgot what it was like when their feet were cold. So
Right.
you're talking about how everybody else is walking. So I really liked this movie, but I think that was the big thing that I walked away with was just like, again, bridging that generational gap, right? Like older Boyega's character is probably around the same age as the old man on the corner.
It's
right?
Frog. Yeah.
So, again, bridging that generational gap of like, do you understand like what you are doing and how you look at us? Do you understand how that like impacts our community? Like you coming down to the hood and preaching to us about how we need to do better, but you don't live here. You don't experience this. You don't send your kids to public school here. You just, you're a politician. You want to take pictures. You want to be a city councilman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're from here, but you don't live here. You know what I mean? So
that's one of those.
That's the takeaway from all of it. Like it
See,
boils
that's
down
one of those
to
moments where
what
I've
do
heard
we
people
choose
say,
to do for ourselves, our own community.
"You from here, but you're not from here."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teresa, any overall themes that you wanted to touch on, or was there something about the character? We'll call him Dr. Fontaine. I don't even know that he had credits listed.
But he was Tyrone, wasn't he? Because I mean, they cloned. He was the original. He was Dr. Tyrone somebody, wasn't he?
You know what? He was. And see, and it was the fact that I saw the guy out in LA who was named Tyrone. I thought that's where that was coming from. And they just like had this guy that they were planting in all these different cities.
Or is that? I mean, I don't know.
I will. You know what? I'll be looking on that. But what did you have any thoughts on? We'll call him Old Man Boyega, Dr. Fontaine. I like that myself. Were there any overall thoughts as far as like some of the different themes that we've talked about, or something in his methodology? Assimilation is better than annihilation. In the movie that you wanted to speak on from your personal perspective. I know you were saying that sometimes you avoid these types of things in movies because you are just looking for the entertainment. But having finished the movie, what did you come away with?
I'm not sure if this is going to answer your question, but
sorry, I'm really good at interviewing. So
something that came to my mind as Jeffrey was speaking. Jeffrey, is having a much more intelligent take on it.
Why do you think I have him on the show? Because I just be saying shit. I need
he could be the
somebody
brain.
to make my show better,
But just one thing that I came back to was, he went through all of this for whatever reason, whatever what happened to him and the point that he was trying to get across or whatever. So he started all of these cloning experiments. And so he's obviously a really highly intelligent, highly scientific guy. And so he does all of this cloning, but the fatal flaw, and it's crazy how it's bringing to my mind Phineas and Ferb is just what's coming to my mind. Dr. Dupenschmertz, and he's always making these innators, coming up with all of these.
He's got the cloninator.
This is my
cloninator.
Right. But he never learns not to put a self-destruct button on them. And I don't know, it just came to me when I was listening to Jeffrey. You got Dr. Old Fontaine. He made all these clones, and he groomed, what's his name, Chester, to be his bodyguard and all of this stuff. But
the same basic ass programming.
The same programming that they undoubtedly were using to control the other clones, the lesser clones. You put that same trigger in Chester so that young Fontaine can use it against you.
Ooh, so we're about to take this thing full circle. Stay with me now. Ultimately, when they were having the conversation, Fontaine looks at old man and says, "So you're me?" He's like, "Well, actually, you're me," which means,
Right.
as you typically hear in like scientific movies where big research has to be done, they need a test subject. They can't get the government approval, so they do the research and
On
test on
themselves.
themselves, right?
Right.
So ultimately, he makes a clone of himself. Now, he goes on. God knows, there's different models and numbers and sequences, and they're in all these different places. So you have all these various clones. Got that. Now, if he was cloning himself, ultimately, that would make every potential clone have the capacity for his level of intelligence. Which is why we have a character like Fontaine, who in a short time was able to come to terms, deal with, process, move forward, and ultimately execute a plan, albeit half baked and,
Right.
because Chester pieced him up real quick.
Yes, he did. He did.
But that brain it's still ultimately Dr. Fontaine's brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's cloned. And if multiplicity this is where my movie geek stuff starts coming in. If multiplicity with Michael Keaton comes in, every time you make another clone, by the time you get 5 clones in, that clone ain't got the same intelligence. So while they may not have the 140 plus IQ, they're probably still higher than like 100. They're above average. They show the capacity because he made these adjustments, and what I'm saying, like his relationship with the little kid Junebug. You know what I'm saying? The way he and Slick Charles were having a conversation, and he was like, because that was a hell of a meta conversation they were talking. He's like, man, I never wanted to play as Bob Hunter. He's like, I ain't never had a brother. Still love him though. Like, I was like, damn, like I get that, because ultimately, even if you have that meta moment where you accept and recognize that you in fact are not the original, that you are just a clone, you still accept that the memories you have that have been programmed into you are in fact who you are, even as a clone. And that's where that Black Mirror part comes in, because you never get to see the life of the clone. It's always about the original, never the clone. And there was a movie, and I got to find that movie, but it has I think it's Sterling K. Brown is in it, and he gets cloned, and I've got to look it up, but it's essentially one of these kind of situations where it's like you have the clone, you have the original, and at what point do those lines blur to say who's the better version of that person? And when we were looking at Chester, we were looking at Fontaine, I personally just kind of felt like Chester was just waiting for an opportunity to be Fontaine. Because I felt like he knew he was under thumb. He was under Nixon's thumb. He knew that at the moment they say jump, he got to say how high.
Right.
And even though there's programming, we saw when Nixon used the programming on Fontaine that he still wanted to fight it. He couldn't, MK Ultra, he couldn't fight the programming, but he clearly wanted to fight the programming. And I feel like Chester was one of those people that wanted to fight the programming. And that's why I think back to like Gemini Man with Will Smith, where like in those movies, in that movie, the clones, one of the clones wanted to fight back against the programming. And that's where the movie gets a little meta with that type of stuff, and it becomes a philosophical thing. It makes for good television, it makes for good TV. It's cool to see it, but that was the thing that stood out to me was I noticed how just the way Chester looked at Fontaine, like it wasn't the same actor. Man, that blows my mind. But the way Chester looked at Fontaine with envy and disdain simultaneously. You know what I'm saying? Because I couldn't tell if he was looking at him like, look at you, you could be like me. But at the same time, he was upset because he couldn't be like Fontaine.
Like him.
And Dr. Fontaine, he lost his way. He, as is typically the case, his intentions were good. His methodology got lost. Say what?
I don't know if I agree with his intentions being good. Like, what were his intentions to create what?
No, those are his actions. His intentions were to have a society where people that looked like his brother would not fall victim as a result of looking like his brother. That's what I read his intentions to be. His actions, I didn't like that. We don't need a bunch of, I was about to make a bad joke.
We don't need a bunch of Chesters.
We definitely don't need a bunch of Chesters, but we don't need a bunch of store clerks either. Let me say that. We don't need a bunch of store clerks either. Everybody can't be out here running around like a store clerk.
I think the thing too with Chester is that idea that, like, how people are like, oh, why do like kids in the suburbs want to pretend to be gangsters, like black kids? And it's really one of those things where it's like, we saw this from Fontaine's point of view, right? Like, now Fontaine is looking at Chester like, you might have had whatever kind of better life, et cetera, that you had, but like, you a cornball under the thumb. Like, you a cornball. Like, I wouldn't want to be you. But I definitely agree. Like, somebody like Chester definitely looks at someone like Fontaine, because he does have that anger in him, to see other people express feelings that you have but are not allowed to express because of the environment that you're in, because you're a black man in these hoity-toity environments who can't really speak your mind the way you want to speak your mind because of how it's perceived. You look at somebody like Fontaine and you connect with that, and you want to do that, and you want to be that. You want a chance. Now, and that's not that you want to be that, it's that you want the chance to express how you feel the way you see them expressing how they feel. And it seems to be that a lot of times the only time you see the only time you really see like what you feel like black men doing what they want to do is characters like a Fontaine. So it creates also this message of like, well, if you just do how you want to do and walk through life how you want to walk and talk how you want to talk, that's what you're going to be like. So in order to be successful,
when keeping it real goes wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah. So this being the sci-fi conspiracy theory, Big Brother-esque movie that we watched, They Cloned Tyrone. I still put it high on the list. You know what I'm saying? I think as we've discussed it more, I'm gonna go ahead and make it a solid 8. No question at a 7.5. I'm gonna make it a solid 8. I think it's one of the best performances I've seen for a single actor to play multiple roles, given that those roles were so uniquely different. And that's nothing to take away from, like, your Eddie Murphys, who was every member of the Clump family. You know what I'm saying? That's a little different because that was all, you just have to pick these different roles. But the personality difference between Tyrone, Fontaine, Chester and Dr. Fontaine. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't just nuances and outfits; those were different people.
Mm-hmm. And
You
back
know?
to the accents too. He did the American accent and whatever area Fontaine was in. And I have forgotten the very end,
Yeah.
the
When he
the
was out in
other
California,
clone. Yeah,
yeah.
the South Central, he had them
What
R's.
up, blood? Like, you know what I'm saying? I was like, check him out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was. I was very, very impressed overall with John Boyega's performance.
Mhm.
Special shout out to David Allen Greer. Can I tell you, I was like about to get the shouting in my living room till I heard what he was saying. I was like, wait a minute. Wait
They start playing
wait a
back that ass up.
Right.
wait a minute, bruh. Like,
I
but
can't
David
look
Allen
at.
Greer is just I can't think of a time I saw him do something I didn't enjoy. He's
Well,
always fun. Always
you
fun. Every
didn't.
time he's in something.
You obviously didn't watch Queen Sugar.
I don't think I did.
He played a despicable character on Queen Sugar, and now every time I see him but I'm looking at him as old David Allen Greer, bald with the white beard. To me,
Right.
that's a different person from In Living Color David Allen
With a
Greer.
lot of love.
Yeah.
Right.
So I saw him as the Reverend, and when I finally figured out who he was, it brought back the Queen Sugar character, and I'm still mad at him.
Wow.
So
Yeah, he's a really phenomenal actor.
he is.
He's another one of those where it's like if they actually respected comedic actors, like I think he would be held in much higher regard than he is. Like he's one of those people that everybody's like, yeah, we all love David Allen Greer. It's like, why I ain't putting him in no fucking movies?
Right.
Like, why you ain't putting him on no TV shows? Like, show me you love him.
Go all the way back to Hollywood Shuffle. You know what I'm saying? Dexter Wiggles. Like, oh, we went back. That was so great.
I can't remember if I saw that, but I know that qualifies as foolishness in my mind. But I might have seen
You
it.
probably did not see that one. That had Robert Townsend,
Yeah, Robert
Hollywood
Townsend.
Shuffle.
Yeah, that might have been before I saw Foolishness, though.
Now everybody was in that one. That
Mhm.
was where Keenan Ivory Wayans kind of got his start because he played Jerry Curl guy. Oh, that's such a good movie. That's a classic. I'm about to have a moment. Okay,
But that's actually a prime example of not trying to wait and go to a studio. Like, they rejected him, so he made his own movie, and
Yes.
now he's like a Black Hollywood, and regular Hollywood icon because he did for himself. He didn't just say, "I'm assimilate, and we just gonna make all these white movies that with black people in them because that's what they really want us to make." He said, "I'm gonna make what I want to make, and if I gotta make it myself, I will make it myself." And I feel
Meteor
like that's the
Man,
message.
Parenthood,
Yeah.
5 Heartbeats. Like, it just goes
Yes.
on with Robert Townsend. Black royalty right there, man. You know, and Hollywood royalty, like you said, like just phenomenal in everything he's ever done.
And his daughter's
Doesn't
super
get
funny too.
Yeah. Okay, because that is such an easy segue to get sidetracked.
Yeah, don't let me get the spray bottle again.
All right, I was like, yeah, okay, okay. That is They Clone Tyrone. If you have not seen this movie, I would definitely say check it out. Tell your friends to go see this movie. I think this is a movie that is, I think it's culturally important for everyone to see it, and I do mean literally everyone to see it and see both sides. Have your white friends watch it. You know what I'm saying? Like, let them watch it and then sit and have a conversation with them afterwards. You know what I'm saying? Like, fill in the parts
If you
that they don't
want.
understand. Like, fill in the parts that they don't understand, and see if you can
Tell
open up
them
the
you're not gonna
dialogue.
argue.
Right.
Tell
See
them
if you
you're
can
not
open
gonna
up the
argue.
dialogue. Exactly.
I'm just gonna tell you what it is. You don't
See
have
if
to
you can
accept it.
open up the
It is what
dialogue
it
for a
is.
conversation. That's what it needs to be. This is
Nah.
not a right.
No
wrong,
more talking, brother.
There it is.
You're talking too long, brother.
All right, so this has been our review. They Clone Tyrone. I want to thank our special guest, Teresa. Make sure to check her out on her show. You can click that QR code, and you will be able to find the link for the show that she has coming up, the podcast that she's a part of, and or all of the podcasts that she's on. They have a monthly episode, and they have, is it weekly on the other?
It's not scheduled really. It's
Okay.
whenever a property comes out, DC,
Okay, so
Marvel, or something we decide we want to talk about.
Okay, and that's
Usually a couple
Moana.
of times a month. It's the Moana Nui podcast.
No, Moana Nui podcast.
Right.
And it presents the opinionated variants. So you can look up either one. Either look up opinionated variants. That's triggering. I can remember that. Opinionated variants or Moana Nui. There is an episode coming tomorrow.
Tomorrow at 8:30. Yes, that is opinionated variants.
All right. So if you were watching today's show on Wednesday, check out the episode Thursday, August 3rd. If not, pull it up, go back and watch it later. Make sure to go to jpnt17.com to get your very own Spider-Punk shirt. Love this shirt. And it's actually like, I got to say, man, this is a good quality shirt. I like the way this shirt feels. It's soft, it's comfortable, it fit well, and the picture is dope as hell. Like, nobody else got this. So when I wear this shirt, anybody got this one yet? I can be like, you ain't up on this, kids. You ain't up on this. So
I pulled up the website, but I can't see it. So I have to wait till I can take my glasses off so I can see them.
Yeah, I'm with you. And you know the funny part is that's why you keep seeing me like move back, because if I'm too close, I got to put my glasses on. I can't see. If I move back, I can see a little better. But I want to thank Teresa for being on the show with us today. I want to thank Jeff, as always, for hanging out with me, man, having a good conversation. And we got to talk about a new movie that he recommended that I watch, and I loved it. It was fantastic. They Cloned Tyrone. I could not understand why everybody was going so goo-goo over Erykah Badu's Closing Number. She changed a couple lyrics. It was like, I need that version of the song. Not really. It's cool. I like the original version myself. But that's just me. For Teresa, Jeff, I am Sam. We are Grown A Geeks, and we are out of here. Peace.